For example, like the Liverpool-Fulham game, we went out for lunch, and it may have been on my phone on a chair next to me. My wife and child are opposite. Those things will happen because I'm looking for what I can take and looking for what I can get in. I am, addicted to sport.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all our friends tuning in from around the world to the 4th episode of the Boys Café. I'm your host Akash and I'm joined by my co-host Aviral, and today we have someone who inspired us to do what we are doing today, who has been a constant support and guided us since the start of the journey. I remember sending him a text, a DM on Twitter and asked him about what he felt about the first thread that we made, and then he gave us his suggestion. And we have been a constant viewer to his pod as well. It recently featured into the top 100 UK sports pod as well. The pod name, as you know, will be above average FPL between him and his co-host Adam. So please join me in welcoming Baker to the Boys Cafe. Hi Baker, how are you doing?
Yeah, pleased to be here, boys. Pleased to be here. But feels like a long time ago now. But we chatted when you started your threads and started getting your content out. But really keen that once you started this, that we can come along and have a chat.
Yeah, we started somewhere in the month of February, and that's where we had interacted the first time as well. And yeah, it's been like 5 months since then. How was your game week, Baker? I saw your team as well. We both were Kane owners. How does it feel? How was the game week?
I feel like the game week just played out in a way. Like in your game week is either your score is around 70 if you had Haaland and Salah, Cap.
Salah.
If you've done more than that, then you've really had a few fantastic things happen. And if you didn't have one of those things, you're sort of then looking in the 60s, 50s, some in the 40s, but a 62 for me, it's fine. Yeah, it's no big at the moment. It's middle of the road. Keep yourself in the game. That's all it is at the start. As the season goes on, the decisions matter more. Once chips start running out, people start playing it. Don't forget as well the amount of teams that played wildcards, play bench boost. Well, they haven't played wildcards yet, but they will play wildcards now. They'll play bench boost. They've played triple captain. We had in our pod league a few of the top ones had 4 Arsenal. So and the only way you have 4 Arsenal is if you have Zinchenko because he was at City. So therefore, it's a guarantee that you got the Zinchenko hauls. There'll be loads of those. Yeah, so when you're looking at them, everything is sort of slightly inflated, but realistically, you either got the outcome right for both Haaland and Salah, or you didn't, and that's it.
Yeah, at least one of us got it right. Viral, how was your game week?
Yeah, I am glad I switched to Alan last minute. If there were, I think, 30 minutes more for the deadline, I would have switched back to Ken. I am so glad that confusion is over. So for me, it was more about finding balance between the team, and I just did not want to book that Gameweek 1 transfer from Kane to Haaland because I wasn't getting enough defensive options. So made the call there, and I'm glad it paid off.
It was basically the history that Kane had against Southampton, right? He had scored like 11 goals, 8 assists in 18 games against Southampton. And Haaland was playing for the first time in the Premier League. We hadn't seen enough of. So that's why that was my thought process why I went with Kane, and he was averaging around 6 points per game. No one, I think, not for me, I wouldn't have imagined if I knew that Spurs scored 4 goals. I for sure would have felt that Kane would be scoring 1 or 2, Son would be on the score sheet as well. So it was a bit of not a normal game week for Spurs. So yeah, FPL is back, so is the pain. Tell tell us more, Baker. What was this season? What is your strategy behind it? What were the preparations that you did in the pre-season? How many drafts did you make?
It's pretty calm, actually. Not many. If anything, probably could have made more. In that sense, in that the less that you make, I found, then you've almost like really bought into players a bit longer. If you're always chopping and changing, then you're actually probably more flexible as you get into the end. So I waited quite a long time before I did make a draft, but then was there. And so, for example, like Perisic was in from the day it opened, was in there. In fact, auto select put him in there and I never took him out. And then I think that probably then sort of almost like I was crystallised in that moment that I was like, I know I'm going to want him, so let's leave him there. When everything in my body said, just go Trippier, just do that, it makes sense, that's what I wanted. And interestingly, because I didn't feel like I had that many risks, was there where I was like, actually I'm okay to do this transfer, so therefore my feelings on the Kane one was, yeah, let's go with that. And Spurs fan and my two Spurs boys were the ones that did me badly, but I'm not a big tinkerer. The problem is, with the more you tinker, then the more screenshots you've got, and then the more times you would be able to look back and go, oh God, look what that score would have got me and stuff like that. Like, I'd never do that. I'd never go and add up what the points were on a previous draft. Like, that's no good to anybody. Like, you don't. This is a stress of mental health, this game, at times, and you got to do everything you can do to not have that. But yeah, pretty calm.
Exactly. What about you, Aviral? How many drafts for you?
Not that many. As you may know, I created my team 2 days before the game started, so I was just observing everyone on Twitter, what they are doing, what transfers are happening in real world, and how that's translating to FPL, what assets would be more useful. And as Baker mentioned, the less drafts you make, the less you have stress. So just keeping it simple.
But it's equally important to stay aware about all the information that's being presented to you, and the preseason games, like whatever has happened. I know preseason games means nothing, but just the new style of play, whatever has been through the club. So talking about Spurs, Baker, as he said, is a big Spurs fan. So Baker, why don't you tell us about how your love story with Spurs began? How what's your favorite memory of Spurs? And over to you.
I kind of never really had a choice in Spurs. My whole family supports Tottenham. My 6th great grandfather was actually the founder of Tottenham. So, as in was the first ever president, as they called him at the time, John Ripshire. So when it's in your blood, it's in your blood. You've got no choice in that matter. So it's always been Tottenham. And I mean, it's quite a suffering being a Tottenham fan. There's not many. When you think of most of the good times, they're followed by the just bad times. I think I've been on Watchlists lose something like a dozen semi-final or finals. As a Tottenham fan, that happens really, really regularly. The thing I always think about being a Tottenham fan is that I always believe that football's about moments. Like, I don't ever buy into the people when people say, yeah, this player, but what's he won like? And I'm like, I think about the moment. So if I think about like Harry Kane, and I think about some of the goals he scored against Arsenal, there's a header that he scores back across the goal. There's the obvious one that I think everyone's seen where he scores from out wide and then rips his mask off on the run. Being there for those moments. My favourite probably was we beat Chelsea 5-3, and he was very, very young at the time, and it was up against Terry, who was just obviously just really good. And as he goes to shoot, he just sort of feints it on the shot, and it just puts Terry on his bum, and then he scores, and it was like, that was the moment when you were like, that's the player. So I'm always more on the moments, and Tottenham have had so many unbelievable moments. The Amsterdam is obviously the pinnacle. You won't be able to see, but just over here, this is my office where I normally work and stuff, but we've got Amsterdam there, we've got the last game at White Hart Lane there, Moments are just so much more for me. I was fortunate to get a ticket for the Champions League final. That didn't work out too well. I was literally about 5 rows behind when Sissoko handballed it the first minute, and you were like, Tottenham. But it's always fun.
Oh, shit.
It's always fun, including this weekend. So, yeah.
And things are looking good now for Spurs. Since Conte took over, Spurs have been on a different level. Of course, there was a dip during the end of the last season, but again, they are expecting big things from Spurs. What about you? What are your expectations, and what do you think this season might bring for Spurs?
I just think in the Premier League now, full stop, you can't get away with bad coaching. It's so evident. You know, Klopp and Pep have changed the game. Absolutely changed the game, you know, in the standard of what's expected of them. Man United fans will see it, you know, they've seen it like of years of not having that, and they saw it this weekend. They came up against a brilliant manager in Potter, and it's like, well, all the good work that he could do, you come up against a great manager who's had that team well drilled for a couple of years, and you see the difference. Vieira and Arteta Friday night, good managers, you know, Tuchel, good manager, you know, there's so many good managers out there. So you've got to be on it, and Conte is just on it. Like, it feels very different to the Pop years. It feels very different, certainly to the Nuno years. Well, not even a year, a couple of months, as it were. It definitely feels different to Mourinho in that world. So there's no reason not to be excited, but you have to also remember best 2 managers since Ferguson are in that league, and you watched City yesterday and you were like, they just didn't let West Ham have the ball. It's just phenomenal, and you were like, there's not a team that can do what they did yesterday. So as excited as I am, that's the point as well. People will always talk about, are you upset if you don't get a trophy or do those things? You just want to be in the ring. You just want to be fighting and being able to take on those type of teams, those type of, you know, players, those type of managers. Beating Man City twice last season was an absolute joy. You know, going toe to toe with them at the Etihad and winning.
Yeah.
Incredible. So
last moment,
that's what we hope for this season. Just keep doing that, you know, and see where it plays out. But you can't afford many slip-ups. You know, Klopp already will be looking at it and thinking, that's a big loss. And it's not a loss.
2 points gone.
But 2 points gone is big.
Especially with the margins that there have been between City and Liverpool, 1 point goal difference. Like, there's no room for error between those two.
We both are Manchester United fans, so when you gave that reference, we got that. It's been like that for the last 8 years now, and 12 years now. So yeah, but even we are a little optimistic this time because of Erik ten Hag. We lost the game yesterday, but in the second half there were moments that we felt a little positive about as compared to what was there last season. But yeah, he has a big job in his hand. Ten Hag as well.
It's a massive
job. Let's see what he
don't
does.
underestimate how big that job is. And I said to Late Riser from The Wire, I said to him, you know, yesterday, I said, don't forget Conte, like 8 weeks into his job at Burnley when we lost 1-0, literally in tears, like questioning whether he was a good manager or not. Like, that will happen. And I think the tough part will be for Man United fans is that Ten Hag is a pretty cold character in press conferences. And I think as long as you believe in it, then that'll be okay. But I think the press, after a little while, I don't know if they'll give them that easy a ride.
And the word that you used, like being cold in the interviews, we saw in the first interview when there was one media person, he asked him about Ronaldo and the team walking away early from the Real game on the weekend. And then he told him straightforward that get your facts right. I did not mention Ronaldo. I mentioned that all the players who left early, that wasn't acceptable from them. So he told it straightforward to him that get your facts right and then do your research right and then come back to me. So I think more than the media, I think the fans should also give him some time. I know we have been a little impatient over the past few years. Since 2017, no trophy. So I get it from the fans as well, but I hope we give enough time and our patience from our side as well. I think that's equally important. Okay, before we move ahead, Baker, we have a section called Rapid Fire. I thought our listeners would like to know the person behind the handle. We all know you are a very famous person on Twitter, Baker. Everyone sees your pod. But who are you as a person? So we have 15 to 20 questions lined up, and just be a little quick. Don't think a lot. Don't think a lot, and don't be politically correct when you answer them. But tell us when you are ready, and we can get started. Okay, so the first one, Baker, is what's the best stadium you have been to as an away fan?
I want to call it the Nou Camp because I'm old. Some people might call it the Camp Nou or those bits, but for me, that was a special thing to go. Not even so much for the stadium, but just the community. Like, for such a big place, you could see like lots of locals that knew each other, were like meeting beforehand, sharing food and stuff like that. It was a really different experience, I thought, to what an English stadium would be. So that was my favourite moment, was going to the first time I went to the Camp Nou.
If you could transfer one player from the current Arsenal team to Spurs, who would it be?
One player from the current Arsenal team. Well, I'll have to say Ramsdale, because Hugo's quite old. So he's the one that will need to replace him the quickest. So, or maybe I can go Zinchenko because he's not quite acclimatised yet. But no, we'll go Ramsdale.
Okay. Next one is, what does your normal Saturday look like? FPL deadline at 12 noon UK time.
It's really difficult actually doing a roundup of a review on a Sunday night for a pod. It's really difficult. It probably didn't really take into consideration of how hard that will be, especially once you put it on YouTube. So I have a wife and a 3-year-old son, and weekends they want to do a lot of stuff. But I know that I want to see, or partly see, as many games as possible. I also want to go to Tottenham if I can do it, and I'd also, if I'd like to, want to try and play golf on a weekend. So I'm literally looking at it and going, well, where's my angles that I can, one, be a good dad, be a good husband, but also get as many games in as possible. And included that might be, I will sneakily maybe watch games. So, for example, like the Liverpool-Fulham game, we went out for lunch. And the game may have been on my phone on a chair next to me, my wife and child. Those things will happen because I'm looking for what I can take and what I can get in. I don't go out that much, I would say, like Friday, Saturday night is, and that, I don't have time, but sports, families, and whatever I can do for myself, that'll do for me.
And next, we also know that you are quite a beer person, so what's the favorite beer that you've had?
There's a brewery like Cheltenham Way called Deya, D-E-Y-A, and they do a beer called Steady Rolling Man, and that's my favourite beer. I like a hazy IPA type thing, so the hazier the better.
Nice. Your dream holiday destination?
You know what?
Outside of UK.
As I said, my son is 40 months now. We haven't had a outside the UK holiday yet. With COVID, with him, so it feels like a really long time.
Yeah.
But if I had the opportunity, Vegas. It is. Me and my wife got married in Vegas, and we just want to go back there and Vegas, mate. Why not? If it's not for the fun, then without a doubt, Italy, just everywhere in Italy is fantastic. But Tuscany in particular, so it's not always just casinos and that. But if I want to go somewhere nice, Tuscany in Italy or down at Sorrento, those are ideal for me.
Like just 30 minutes before I was planning a trip to Vegas, so good to know that's on your list as well. So the next one is, if you were given a choice to meet one celebrity outside of sports, who would it be?
I've got to... Oh, it's outside of sports. Oh, outside of sports. Probably a De Niro and Al Pacino. Probably. Those would be, evening in their company would be incredible.
Yep.
Right. Would you rather Spurs win the Premier League or you win the FPL?
Not even a question.
Okay.
Along similar lines, so Bale or Modric, who do you think, or who do you wish Spurs would have held on to longer?
Bale, definitely, in a way. But there was a moment, that last season of Bale's was so good. So good. I was at the game for the last one against Sunderland.
Yeah.
And behind the goal when he scored from like 20 odd yards in the top corner. And I remember just that moment thinking, yeah, you deserve to go to play Real Madrid. Just, you couldn't have done more for us. A genuine emotional piece of that. So hard for me to say that I wish we kept him longer, because it was almost like the whole crowd were like, go on, mate. Go and show the world stage what you are. And you're always going to do that at Real Madrid.
City or countryside?
By the sea, I'd say. So I'm going to go countryside, because it's normally more by the sea. We all like
Analytics FC or Grass FC?
I like it in my head still say that on grass.
Thank you. That was rapid fire questions. Thank you, Baker, for being so sporting and answering all our questions. We hope all our listeners enjoyed that. And moving on to the FPL bit now.
Over to you. How do you want to get started? The first game first, or the one that's most recent in our memory? How do you want to look?
Not the top if you want, boy. I mean, do you want to look? Are we looking at them all?
We can fairly discuss who were the key players in most of the games, and
what are the key FPL takeaways?
I guess the first one is obviously we've got the most owned player in the game in Jesus, and he did blank. Do you think we can take him on?
I think the Leicester game should be a better one for him, because Leicester, they always score but they concede as well. Like you said in the pod yesterday also, they basically start at 1-1. And should be a good game for Jesus, and he is just a highly owned player for a reason, and we have to be a little patient. I think it should be good for next game. But apart from Jesus, I think Martinelli had a really good game, and Palace, I think they defended really well. They are not a team we can target. I think they will give a hard time to the top 6 teams. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm very, very calm on Jesus, but I think life will get very interesting if he doesn't score against Leicester. With other forwards around, we're all looking at our forwards now and thinking we want 4. We want more of them. Mitrovic is a cheap option. Bamford's back. Wilson's back. Historically good starters. There's plenty of them around, and so I think it's going to be interesting. But I was very pleased with the work that he put in. I think the thing that I always take away from Arsenal is that win first. They know it. They can't afford to drop points. They're in this to try and be top 4. A lot of people have triple attack, and hey, Saka got an assist, Martinelli got a goal. But I'm like, I don't know. In many weeks you're getting more than. I think most weeks you will get maybe 15 points from those, but 22 million, whatever it is, for Jesus, Saka and Martinelli, for me, is still too much. Martinelli is the one you just needed. Can't see any of us leave.
More so when we have Ramsdale at goal, the best is so a bonus point magnet, like we say. So I think triple attack seems a little dodgy for now. 2 is enough. Jesus and Martinelli, like you called out, and then either Ramsdale or Zinchenko, one from the defense is also good, because they have looked solid in pre-season as well. In the last game as well, they were pretty solid in defense as well.
Yeah, and in a game where they win 2-0, is those defenders all had really good baselines, so therefore those defenders are almost all likely to be in the bonus conversation. Zinchenko, Gabriel, if Gabriel hadn't got booked, then he would have certainly, been even higher up in terms of where he was for his points. But Saliba, Ramsdale, they're all, when you have teams that have a low block like they can do when they sit in, they just get loads of clearances, loads of interceptions, they work hard.
Okay, moving on to Liverpool, 2-2. Major takeaways, apart from Darwin Núñez.
He's a weapon, and Mitrovic is a weapon. And Mitrovic is a weapon at 6.5, not 9. And will play 90 minutes every game, and I think a lot of us in FPL, we're looking at how do we get Núñez in, but the casuals looking at how do we get Mitrovic in. 300,000 people have already brought Mitrovic in. And he plays Wolves next in game week 2, and it's not a bad fixture. It's not a bad fixture for him. So Liverpool, I don't know. Liverpool are an elite attack, but they're not an elite defence in how they defend. They leave too much open. They rely on the brilliance of Alisson way too much. People will always say that when Trent gets done on that first goal, it's Trent bad defending. No fullback outjumps a number 9. No fullback outjumps a number 9. If that happens against anyone, that's the way it goes. People target back post, get on the fullback. Sessegnon did it to KWP. These things happen all the time, but he didn't stand a chance. It's not bad defending. It's good targeting of Fulham. Van Dijk is too loose. In my opinion, he's way too loose as a defender, in that he backs his brilliance, which is fine on one-on-ones, but you should be thinking Mitrovic is not going to get on the end of this header. I remember last time he was up in the league, he was getting 4 or 5 headed shots a game, Mitrovic. They need to plan better for those teams. Because all you had to do was dismantle Mitrovic, and it was over, for them. Pereira looks really strong. Really strong. You're Man United fans, what's your thoughts on Pereira?
So he always looked like the prime Pirlo in pre-season. He always played really well in pre-season. But as soon as he was in 2016-17 season, I think he was given a start in the midfield alongside McTominay. He's a good player, but not a top 6 player, I would say. Just like JC Lingard, I think he would perform really good for a mid-place team. He'll get a lot of chances, and even in the under-19 days when he played for Brazil when they won the under-19, he played at a 10. That's his best position for Andreas, which he couldn't get at United. For some time it was Pogba, then Bruno came over. So there was no position for him at 10. Now I think at Fulham, like we saw, he was basically playing as a second striker at some point. So he'll get his chances to play at 10, and I think that would be better for him. He can be a good option for 4.5.
Teams that even if they go down, there's mid-table teams that they look to snap them up to fill that void that they have usually in the number 10 role.
What about Salah?
Salah, I think the big thing on Salah is that when he had an assist in this game, he was on 2 bonus. That never ever used to happen. So he is playing a little wider. He has got now a forward that comes in, a Nunes and so forth, but his all-round game has never been better. He was just an outright weapon 2 years ago. Now he is an all-round player. His pass completion's good. His key passes are good. He's got many assets to it. If you looked at Kane versus Salah, say 2 years ago, and even like last season, you'd be like, yeah, but Kane, as well as scoring, sets up and does all those things. Salah's now back. He's a top goal scorer, so he gets 5 points for his goal. He is doing enough to be in the bonus, gets more bonus than anybody else in the game. And he now is getting most assists in the league. Like, it used to be, if you were, say, a KDB, you'd be like, yeah, but KDB will get more assists than Salah and so forth. And I'm like, just not even sure anymore. He's the ultimate. That's why he's 13 million.
Right.
I think he becomes, in game week 3, I think that's going to be really interesting for us as to who you go for in captain. Would you boys consider Mo at the moment away at Old Trafford?
I think I will surely, because both games last season I didn't captain Mo against United. I went with James, luckily not Havertz, in game week 9, so that went well for me. Havertz blanked, Salah scored, and then in 33 I think he played United again, and then again I didn't captain him. I went with Kane or someone, I think, and again he absolutely smashed us. I don't want to take the risk, and the defense, like, it's looking at the moment, I know there are brighter sides and we might improve defensively, but Liverpool are Liverpool and we aren't at that level yet. So it will be a little difficult being a United fan captaining someone against us. But I think our concentration has to be on FPL. So Salah, I think, game week 3. Even Nunes, for that matter, he got a lot of chances up front, and with Maguire as the centre back and who is a little slow tracking back, I think Nunes can exploit the spaces that might be created. So he can be a genuine option.
It's going to be fun. Game week 3 is going to be fun because you've got Tottenham at home, you've got Haaland. After everybody's going to captain him, and we'll assume he does well against Bournemouth. Does everyone just leave it on for their way to Newcastle game, and then you've got Salah at United? Like, that's going to be where we see fun splits.
Moving on, the Villa game, I think a lot of the managers had Villa defense, and we also had Bailey. So what are your thoughts about Bournemouth? Because Bournemouth, in the FPL Wire pod also, later I also mentioned about the Bournemouth manager mentioning that he needs a lot of players. They are like 5 to 6 players short. But it wasn't visible in the game. The defense looked solid against Villa. Villa were poor as well to start with, but Bournemouth didn't look like a team to target.
Whenever a manager says something like that, it's so weird because, like, thousands of people on FPL Twitter think that comment is for them to use to their own advantage, whereas it's like the only person that's for advantage for is the manager putting pressure on the chairman in public to gain some faith with the supporters. Like, it's a tool. It's not like idiots managers of the Premier League. Like I think we always think we're better than them, and it's like they're using it as a go. I need you to give me more players. I want you to spend money. I want to make it really clear that I'm not the one holding us back here. It's you. But that's not what behind the scenes with the players, they're not going, oh, we're going to lose here, everyone's going to target us because we haven't got enough players. Like, they're working hard, is what it is. We can't go near Bournemouth because of their fixtures and because they've got City up next, and if you've got Villa, they've got too good a fixture to go away from Bailey. You just play them and work it out later.
Alright, just one more week of Villa. I think we'll have to hold Bailey, and then from game week 3 their fixtures turn, and then we can think about replacing him the Leeds game now, Bamford was he could have got like a 10-pointer, 2-digit haul, but didn't. Aronson had a very good game, and what do you think about their attack? Because Leeds, if you see their games, until game week 10, they have really good run. So it's for us to identify that right player that we want from Leeds.
That is the takeaways from it. I just don't have huge hopes either way on those ones. Whether you're a Neto owner, an Aronson owner, a Bamford owner, any of those owners, you like we've got to temper our expectations and see what we can get. You know, as much as Leeds have got, so they're away at Southampton. That's when you're going to see it, because Southampton need a response. Let's see what happens there for them. First game at home in front of your fans. You've seen it, the Bournemouth game, the Fulham game, even Palace, Newcastle, Tottenham, all of those, you know, home crowds really seemed like they carried the earlier teams home in the first ones. Even, like I say, Palace from being 2-0 down, if that was at the Emirates, they could have gone 5-0. But it wasn't. They were still very much, a 1-0 down, certainly they were very much in the game. I feel like the Leeds home crowd would have really helped them there. They were up for it, and let's see how they do. But I think they'll wait and watch. You certainly would. I wouldn't encourage anyone to start prioritising transfers for players that are kind of like £7 million or below this week. Doesn't make sense.
Completely agree. Yeah. Next up is Newcastle versus Nottingham. I think I can summarize it in a couple of lines that Newcastle looked really good in defence, and the takeaway from that game was how fluid the attack was. Baker pointed it out in his spot, above average FPL yesterday, about Bruno, Jolinton, Almiron, and everyone was so fluid amongst them, and then Callum Wilson was the target man. He was waiting in and around the box. So I think Newcastle attack is going to be good this season, as we had seen in the last season end of the last season. So they can be an option, like Callum Wilson can be an option to look at. Not this game week, but in a longer run, yes, Newcastle can be a good attacking team perspective. Trippier had a good game. He didn't have any attacking returns, but got us bonus points. So that was there. Moving on to the Tottenham game, and Baker, over to you. Spurs 4-1. No Kane returns. So,
the good news is what you've got is last season the positions at the turn point, so wing backs and the front three, those positions are still returning. The one that might be a difference for us this season is we've employed Italy's set piece coach. Walter Zenga once said that Vio, the guy we've signed, is basically the equivalent of signing a 15-goal a season striker. He's adamant he adds 15 set-piece goals to your team every season. Now, we were much more dangerous from set pieces, so that's good for Son because he takes them all. Takes them all. Like I always look in FPL for guys that take them all, for both sides. So Maddison this weekend took them all. You know, if you watch Chelsea, for example, James took one side, Mount takes the other side. You know, and it's like, what am I going to get from here? Am I going to get both of them? Even Trent versus Robbo, like as Robbo steps up and starts taking more corners over the last year, it hurts the number of assists that Trent will get. But you're looking for those players where they take from both sides, and Son takes them all. So he continually becomes that person that can return in any game because of his assist. He has an inflated baseline because of the fact that he takes them. So again, James made 17 crosses in that Chelsea game. We'll get to that one. Like, even with a book in, you're going to get bonus every week. So Son becomes, I think, the premium asset that you want from that team. Kulusevski is just a class act, and nobody knows just how good Kulusevski can be, but he's got everything. There's very little he can't do. and he looks like he's hungrier to break the line. He's not the quickest in the world, but he's quick enough and he's strong. And if he gets in front of you, I don't think many people get back against him. Kane's very similar in that front. That you wouldn't say he's particularly quick, but if he's past you, he's about 6'2", 6'3". Kane, you ain't knocking him off the ball. And the same on Kulusevski. There's not many fullbacks at his size, so once he's past you, he's in. So yeah, it does feel a little bit like the points could be spread out a little bit more, because if we're taking more set pieces, more of the centre backs will score. It could be well spread out. I wouldn't ever read too much into the score itself. Like, a lot of it is game state. If you watch or look at Inter's season with Conte when they won the league, a lot of times if they conceded, they then scored 4, 5, 6. It's like literally gloves off, let's go. So if we'd have gone 2-0 up, like Man City, like Newcastle, for example, would we have just controlled the game and just played it out? Maybe, because we ended up doing that. Once we got to 4, it was like, yeah, we're there. Just coast home. So do I think we'll score 4 every week? Who knows? But yeah, it's quite hard actually to be on the Spurs asset, I think, at the moment. Wing backs is really difficult. Sessegnon was really good. I've got Perisic and I'm like, don't know what to do, because I know that if he plays, it's golden. But how does he play if Sessegnon keeps scoring?
If he plays and when he plays.
Yeah. And if
Even I think Emerson also had a good enough game from the right side. I know Doherty will be preferred in the next, might be preferred in the next game. But the way the positioning that Sessegnon was taking, I think a lot of managers were saying that it's a good thing for Perisic because the next game he will be there. But I don't know if he will be there because Sessegnon had such a good game. I don't know if Conte will replace him at the first place. So
yeah, Sessegnon and Emerson are
backs.
probably the best 2 defensive ones. So therefore, we're going away to Chelsea, you'd think the 2 defensive ones play. It's whether the Wolves ones, whether they then start changing it up. But if Emerson nails down that spot, it's just magnificent for Kulusevski. If Doherty does it, it's not good for Kulusevski because Doherty comes off the full wing back, so he's straight off it, which pushes Kulusevski wide. So if Kulusevski goal, it's probably Kulusevski that goes wide and it's Doherty that ends up taking the shot. Whereas what you want is with Emerson is Conte knows that Emerson will draw it wide, he'll lay it into Kulusevski, and then it's a much higher value shot because it's on the beautiful left foot of Kulusevski. So if I was Conte, I'd be more tempted at the moment to play Emerson. And he could get a lot of free assists to Kulusevski in that sense, so his 4.5 value might be worth it, but very, very difficult. When we've got so many good assets, would I encourage most people at the moment to risk it on Ivan Perisic? Probably not now. If you've got him, it's going to be one of those where it's going to tease you. Tease you.
Moving on to Chelsea vs Everton, 1-0. I think Everton, they created some opportunities from Patterson, and Gordon was at the centre of the goal a lot of times. But apart from that, nothing encouraging from Everton's point of view. But the thing about Chelsea is that I didn't think they had a good game from an attacking perspective. Their fluidity, like we mentioned for Newcastle, was not there in the Chelsea attackers. Mount looked off pace. He looked a completely different player in the pre-season. But he didn't have a good game week. Havertz didn't have a good game week. James had a really good... I think he was on 7 points, but he could have had more. He, like you said, he put in a lot of crosses and he's taking corners also. Though I don't think his corners were that good. Even he took a free kick at the end. That was also not that good. So I don't know if he keeps doing that going forward. But he was playing high up and very positive signs for James. If you want to get into that Chelsea defense, James should be the one to go for. I think quite bullish on that. We have covered United and City in depth before only, so the last game to cover would be Leicester and Brentford. I will watch that game because United weren't playing that well and he had to switch in to watch a Leicester game. So Aviral, why don't you share? What do you think about Leicester and Brentford?
Yeah, so the thing about Leicester is, as you mentioned earlier in our call, is that they will score but also likely concede, and that is exactly what happened. They were looking so good starting off, got a couple of goals. Tielemans hit the post as well, but then again the stumble. So it's a matter of, I think, identifying more of like waiting and seeing who are the consistent performance and then getting them, rather than just basing our decisions on one game week. Because going forward, I think consistency is going to be key for Leicester in how they perform in the league as well, and how their assets give us returns as well. So no major key takeaways, nothing that I can say that we should be bullish upon, but just wait and see who's performing consistently. I think Maddison, Tielemans, Vardy going forward, and Castagna would be the ones to watch out for. But as I mentioned, just need to keep a hold.
I watched the extended highlights today morning and I had noted two things down. One was Maddison, heavily involved in everything that Leicester did, central to all the attacks and a lot of shots that he took. And the second player was James Justin. I think he looked really good. And when Leicester's games turn, I think from game week 8 onwards, they have a really good run of games. I think James Justin will be in a lot of our teams. He's a really good option at 4.5. Baker, did you get a chance to watch the game?
It? And similar, I took it away and thought the same on James Justin, and then I thought about it since, and I'm like, why am I saying James Justin when Timothy Castagna? Like, I watched the last pre-season game and he played right wing when Pereira was fit. So when Pereira was fit, he played right wing, and then you're like, okay, and Pereira's not fit, he plays right wing back, and he's flying and he's getting in the box more actually than Justin. So on reflection, I'm like, Castagna's probably the one. You know, at the same price at 4.5. He was good. Right. You know, is felt like Vardy was really having to scrap for anything. Like, he just hardly touched the ball at all. It was just decoy runs. You know, his assist he got was just a tap sideways out of 30 yards. You know, it's a gimme assist thing, but it felt like Maddison's the prime asset for me, and Castagna or Justin. Just need to get a bit of luck. And Dewsbury Hall at 5 million, he's still good value. You know, is he worth the extra $500,000 on Pereira? I don't think so, without any set piece. But yeah. And Tony was in loads of really good positions. Tony and Boomer are still good options. I just feel like the goals will always fly through those two. And I think either of them are good value, but it's like really exciting. Don't know.
Yeah. Better options may be available.
Yeah.
So that was the scores that we had for game week 1. Now let's look at how Baker fared in game week 1 and what will be his moves for game week 2. So this is him, 62 points. Like he said, he started with Ramsdale at the back, Trent, Cancelo, Perisic, and James in defense. Salah captain, Diaz, Martinelli, Neto, and Kane and Jesus up front. I think Diaz also had a really good first half. After Darwin came, I think his productivity reduced a little. But Diaz in the first half, he hit the post, had an offside goal. Unlucky to just get 2 points. I also had him. So, Baker, looking forward, what do you think? I think you already made the move to Holland, right?
Get him in or you roll. I don't think we saw enough from the City mids to be able to say, yes, I definitely want to go. That's what I thought might happen, is that someone put their hand up and said, yeah, go there. Now, Phil Foden, I think, is still a really good option, but if you're on Kulusevski, do you really want to come off Kulusevski this week? Like, no, I don't think I would. If you were on Saka, would you come off it? No, I don't think I would. If I was on Diaz, would I? No, I don't think I would.
No.
So therefore, it's not when you've got the gain of rolling. I think for me, it's an easy decision for most people. You roll or you get Haaland in, and if you haven't got that kind of strong template, then it's going to probably hurt you again this weekend, and maybe that is the time when you have to wild card, do what you have to do. But I think you just do it, and then I think everyone that's done it, be really open to, you might have to hit this week or next week to keep up with the crowd, because the crowd is strong.
Exactly. Yes. Like you mentioned in your pod also, Baker, this is to inform the listeners that 62, though it's above the average, the global average of 57, Baker and Live FPL mentioned that they gave us the data about elite managers and the early managers, like Baker was mentioning in his pod yesterday. So they are averaging at around 67 points. So our benchmark of really involved managers should be around 67. So if we are behind them, I think we have a thing or two to look forward to and make that cover in the next game week. Early managers are the ones who registered their teams at the start, and most probably it will be the ones who are really active on Twitter and they want a less FPL ID. So that's why that is also a benchmark, as well as elite managers like you. So Kane to Haaland is the move that Baker has done. Now let's look at the games that we have for next game week, and if apart from Haaland, if there are any possible captaincy options that we could look at. So Manchester City and Bournemouth is the standout game of the game week 2. Apart from that, Baker, anything in your
genuinely radar? No. Like as I said, is I think there's loads of really interesting games of what do we see from Fulham at Wolves, what do we see from Leeds at Southampton, Brighton, Newcastle. Quite similar teams in that they both play quite fluid in the way that they act.
Yeah.
Villa and Everton, both teams seriously need points. So, and United at Brentford. I mean, like, all of them are really interesting. West Ham need points, and they're at Forest, and obviously they're going to be desperate to try and get something. Chelsea Spurs is effectively the biggest kind of matchup of the week. They're all interesting. Where they'll go, I don't know. And that's the point as well, I think, is that I don't think any of them are that clear where I'm like, I'd want to target a transfer. Just get through it.
Mm-hmm. Even for captaincy, if you see Manchester City and Bournemouth, clearly Haaland can be an option. KDB might be an option. Apart from that, Liverpool are playing Palace. Salah is always an option. His name will always be thrown there. But Palace looked good defensively. I know there is Palace a different team at home. They play really well, and away from home they're a little defensively not that good as they are at home. But then Palace looked good in game week 1. So if I wanted to compare for captaincy between Salah and Haaland, I'll go for Haaland for now, for time being. Aviral, anything from you? Haaland as well. Okay, so I think we have a decision. Captaincy, I think all three of us might be going for Haaland. Salah might be the second best option. That is for game week 2. I think we have covered FPL now. Our last section, Baker, is called Unpopular Opinion. So it's a term that is very highly used in the community. And now you are put into a spot, and we want to hear an unpopular opinion from you. Let's go. It can be from FPL perspective as well. It can be from a team's perspective as well. Like if you say United finishing in top 4. can be an unpopular opinion.
I mean, I had this before the season, but I would say
Fair.
one of my unpopular opinions is Ake's the best route into Man City's defence. I think it wouldn't surprise me if come that first international break, he's the highest scoring City defender. So just feel like he's the one they're going to aim at for set pieces. And he's very strong on the bonus. He would have had 2 bonus if he didn't header one more wide at the end. But for me, I think he will end up being a really valuable 5 million.
So there you go, the unpopular opinion of Baker. That brings us to the end of podcast. I think we had a really good recording and about FPL from FPL perspective, and got to know about Baker as well. So thank you, Baker, for taking out time on a Monday and coming and accepting the invitation for the Boys Cafe. Really glad
Cheers,
you could
boys.
make it. And yeah, thank you for coming here.
Yeah, it was lovely having you, Baker. And before you leave, I know a lot of our viewers would be familiar with you, but if you just want to plug your podcast once again for the new listeners.
Above average FPL, me and really good friend Adam. So we're real life friends, not just FPL Twitter friends or any of those things. And yeah, every Sunday night we have a drink, we digest the week, we talk through what we've seen, what our takeaways are. Hopefully helps people then sort of form their decisions through the week. So come check us out. Above average FPL on anywhere you want to go find it.
Thanks, Baker, for taking your time on a Monday. It was lovely having you. Got a lot of great insight and got to know you better. And we look forward to seeing a new guest next week.
See you later.
Thanks, everyone, and tune in again.